people, though, we got Alina Habba.
God, you're getting better at these segues. Good job, Duncan.
Thank you.
Speaking of horrible people.
Speaking of horrible people, we got Alina Habba, and she's going to do the same shit. She's going to lie about the trial and whatnot. And I just want to go through and deconstruct this. So it's Alina Habba on, with, I always forget her name, Laura Ingraham, who's a horrible, horrible human being. So, two awful, awful women having a really disgusting conversation for our viewing pleasure.
Joining me now is Alina Habba, legal spokesperson for President Donald Trump. Alina, it's great to have you on. Our own Peter Doocy spoke with Biden late today about the verdict. Watch this.
Are you worried that this could happen to you someday? Somebody comes up with some charges and tries to bring you into court after your term?
Not at all. I didn't do anything wrong. The system still works.
And when Trump says you're just trying to bruise him, what do you say? Politically. He thinks you're pulling the strings behind the scenes, doing all this to help yourself.
I didn't know it's that powerful.
Alina,
I want to comment on that. I love it. So, well, what if that happens to you? I didn't commit any crimes. So there wouldn't be any evidence. So as long as I got a fair trial, it would be fine. It shouldn't be a problem. Right? Simple answer. Well, what do you say that Trump's saying that you're doing all this and you're planning all this behind his back? Well, one, it's the state of New York. It's got nothing to do with Biden. If Biden were really pulling the strings here, he'd have gotten the DOJ and Aline Cannon and all those people in line, and we'd have already tried Trump on the insurrection and the documents case, and he'd be in prison right now. If Biden were doing that. That's what they don't get. If Biden were behind that, he could have had it done. It could have been taken care of by now. Right? They have plenty of evidence. But that's not what's happened. They're letting it play out in the courts, and Biden's not interfering. That's why it's taken so fucking long. Right? And I'm not blaming Biden. That's what he should be doing. He shouldn't be interfering with the courts. He's in the executive branch. The judicial branch should handle that. So I don't have an issue with any of that. But it's also the same thing as they're also going to sit there and tell you Biden's weak and feeble and he can't do anything and he's his mind's going. Yet at the same time, he's this brilliant mastermind who just convicted Trump in this diabolical scheme. He's both a feeble old man who doesn't know where he is, and he's a genius at the same time. It's like, pick a lane, you guys. Once again, double think. They're holding contradictory ideas and believing them both true at the same time. And they can't be. But watch, Alina Habba pulled this shit. She's going to do the same thing.
heard that. Your reaction tonight?
I think his grin says it all. He couldn't be happier unless he had an ice cream on the beach, which I hear he's doing this weekend while the country is falling apart. Laura, look, I think that it's very clear what happened here. You know it. I know it. We're lawyers. And for the non-lawyers out there, this was a farce from the beginning. The indictment itself didn't make sense. It was flawed. It should never have been brought. There were no facts. Nobody has ever been tried for anything like that. And then if you look at what actually happened with evidentiary issues in this trial.
Okay, so let's get into that real quick. Nothing's ever been done like this before. We went through this the other day, where we pulled up examples of cases where people did the similar thing, falsified business records to cover up a crime, and did
the
prison
one
time.
difference is that it hasn't been somebody who served as president. That's the difference.
Right.
But this crime has been tried. Just because he served as president doesn't give him a green light to commit every crime under the sun.
Yeah, this is not an original or new crime. This has happened a lot. And to say that that doesn't make sense or they didn't really explain, we covered that too. Go onto the Manhattan DA's website under the Trump indictment, right? Alvin Bragg explains what the indictment is in detail, and they gave us flow charts to explain how the crime worked. Flow charts. It's that simple. 5-step flow charts. I mean, it wasn't that complicated. But Alina can't handle it, man. She's so stupid. Oh, God. So, yeah, but it's all just bullshit. All bullshit.
not allowing us to bring in an expert, not allowing us to bring in tax documents for a crime that they say was based.
I want to bring that up. So the expert. So that whole thing was this: they were going to bring in, I think it was a polling expert, to basically say it wouldn't have made a difference on the election one way or the other. And the judge says, well, he can come in and he can state facts about polls and stuff. That's fine. He said, but he can't state in his opinion. And for him to say it didn't matter in the election, that would have been his singular opinion. Right? Because then what would happen is then the prosecution would have to bring in people to rebut that and say, well, my opinion is it did make a difference. And then it's basically just a, he said thing. And we're not arguing facts, we're arguing whose opinion may or may not be right. When we can't possibly know whether
Well, and then how are you supposed to, use any of that to come to a decision about anything? Like, it's not even usable, really,
And furthermore, it's irrelevant because it doesn't matter whether or not it would have affected the election. What matters is he's attempting the crime. Right? If I break into Lacey's house to steal her safe and I can't find the safe and I leave, it's still a burglary because I went there specifically to try and commit a crime. Whether or not I succeeded or an actual crime was committed is irrelevant. I went there with the intent to do it. And if you can prove that, then yeah, it's a felony. That's what happened here. It didn't matter whether or not they succeeded. It didn't matter whether or not it really, it was technically a crime or not. You could argue it. He was attempting to commit a crime. And he used the business records to cover it up. That's all it is. So all this shit's irrelevant that she's talking about. It's just their talking points.
Based on money, which was done booked correctly by an accountant in Trump while President Trump was at the White House at a Resolute desk. It's a disgrace, and we've got a guy who literally can't walk, but is smart enough to smile and snark and make comments like, I didn't realize I was that powerful. He probably doesn't, frankly, Laura. He probably doesn't, because it's probably not him. But there are definitely puppets, and those puppets are coming from the Biden administration and probably from prior administrations, and they are out to get Trump because they can't beat him. And that's
see, there she did. She squared the circle. Biden is incompetent and stupid because he's a puppet of Obama. This is Obama doing all this from behind the scenes, secretly running the government.
God, who would want to?
No, Obama did his 8 years. He was out. The first thing he did when he left was smoke a pack of cigarettes and go windsurfing. Obama doesn't want to go back to that job. Do you see, Obama looks younger now than when he left office. He looked like shit when he left office. But yeah, so they're all dealing with it, and they're just trying to cope with the difficulties of all this shit.